I today is going to happen again over the course of the year, especially if we have so many hearings. And it would be a mess if we weren't able to muster a quorum, especially when we kind of have to make all the constellations align for everybody's schedule in the first place. So I'd be in favor of it.
Any objection, I guess? I don't know.
No.
Oh, okay, so as we're going through this, let's plan on adding that language to our rules of procedure. So let's try to see where we got to do that and see. I guess I'll keep on going through this, but with that idea in mind that we might have to add that language in here. In terms of administrative, so going back to paragraph 4, administrative, 4.4, and before we actually go to that, again, thinking about a bigger picture, I'm assuming we do not want the applicant. We want the applicants to physically be present here. That's the other question is, do we, and that, well, I think legally, or is that going to be up to us to have that, or is it?
You know, Anthony, I believe the participate, other than the board, is only the board members who can be remote, according to the.
Right. As far as participants go, you know, the Board of Equalization is not the kind of a board that typically would have something like public comment from people other than the applicants. But for public comment, for addressing the board, for being an applicant in front of the board, the default rule is that they must be there in person, and so it is within the board's discretion to allow or not allow anyone to either be an applicant remotely, to view remotely. I know historically, I guess, or at least throughout the pandemic, the board has recorded its meetings and made them available online. It is within the board's discretion to decide whether to continue that or not. I will say the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors adopted guidelines strongly encourage allowing non-participants to view remotely and recording meetings for later viewing online, but those are not strictly required legally.
Thank you. Any thoughts with that? In terms of, I guess we have participants, which are the applicants, non-participants, and recording. All three of those things we gotta, I guess, decide on what we want to do there.
I'm in favor of using the recording. I find that we get very different packets of information from people at different levels of sophistication on the real estate stuff. I'm sure the folks from last year remember, you know, there's everything from like almost like an actuary style report on the commercial properties to people showing up and saying that their view isn't very good from the front yard, and so we ought to reduce their assessment. So I think it could only benefit the quality of the submissions if people were able to watch the recorded meetings and see who had done it well and then copy that style instead of having to try and spin a submission from whole cloth. The quality of those has varied pretty widely in my view.
Any other thoughts on recording? One thing on the recording I would just mention is one concern I would have is just obviously the deliberations, these are open meetings and I know we can be here, but obviously if we're recording it, then our deliberations are out there. So it's just a matter of, do we want to have that in the detail we go into, and does it in any way, I don't think it necessarily has an impact on what we say and how we say it, but it may, and I don't know. That's just something to also think about on the recording aspect of it. So
that's a good point. As an attorney, it would make it easier to appeal. You'd have the facial expressions and the back and forth. Sometimes the minutes are a little dry and you miss small inflections that you might think are going to be useful at the circuit court level, or whatever the appeal process is.
that's in line with kind of one of the points I was going to make. To Mr. Mayo's first point about someone could use that kind of as the model. Our experience is that nobody ever looks at these except after the fact if they're really contentious about what was decided. So we don't have anybody actually looking at them in advance to say, how should I go about doing this? So that is a valid point. I'm just not sure it actually is used that way. And then to your point about how it could be used afterwards, I see there it could be very problematic with somebody, being very nitpicky about everything that's said within the meeting, and it's for the board's protection. Also, not just, I definitely would recommend not doing a recording, but I think that's an important thing to consider. Having that audio and video record of everything that happened.
Any other thoughts? No, yes, on record. Let's stick with the recording for now. Just obviously, we're not going to vote on this. It's going to be part of the bigger kind of picture of what we want on the policy. But does anybody have a feeling on that? I guess we'll start with Bob. Any?
I guess the last thing, I'll double dip here and just say, in general, I favor like transparency and openness in the meetings in the spirit of FOIA, and the recording is probably a step in that direction. So.
And Bob, you're in favor of
absolutely, yeah, transparency, totally.
Okay,
it's fine with me.
and Karen, do you have a?
Well, I'm of two minds. I do believe in transparency, but I also recognize what Mr. Lynch is saying, that we need to be able to debate and discuss these issues, and without worrying about our own. Well, I don't know. I guess I'll just fall on the side of transparency.
On the side of transparency, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the end of the day, these are open meetings.
Yeah.
It's been standard practice for the applicants to step away when we deliberate, but they always say it's an open meeting.
Right.
And if they do want to, obviously under FOIA rules, I think they can record too. So it's not like
that's true. Okay.
And so, but it's just we're making that process easier for them.
Okay.
But it sounds like transparent, like the recording, keeping the recording is what the consensus. Okay. Okay, so let's going on to having the applicants and the observers appear via Zoom. Do we want to give that as an option to an applicant to appear via Zoom? Any thoughts there?
I think due to the large number of hearings, we should make it an option.
Well, what would be the criteria? Do we have to then come up with the criteria for it to be an option?
We'd have to come up with the criteria to make it an option. We would, if either we're gonna have a blanket rule and simply say no one can do it, or we can go in and say we're going to do it, we're gonna allow it, then we should have some kind of criteria for it. So I guess first is my thought in terms of saying no to having it would just be the fact that one, I think it's helpful if we're going to be all here. It's helpful to have the person on the other side and have that interaction, and then they have to. It's easier with the papers. I mean, but we've been doing it remotely the last few years and hasn't been an issue either. So again, the only thing is with the folks. The only thing is, I feel like the property owners will be here. They live here in the area. They're going to be. It really is going to benefit the professionals, the attorneys who are coming from either Northern Virginia. Some of them we've been getting calls from Arizona and things like that. So I think it's going to be really to their benefit if we allow it. And then, well, it also depends on what's our reasoning. If they come down with COVID the day before, that's one thing, and we don't want to postpone the hearing. Or if it's just for convenience sake. So those are all kind of factors to consider. So Any strong feelings on this one?
Well, I do have strong feelings about it because I think that if we're allowing ourselves to appear remotely in, for reason, then we should allow the appellants to have that same ability to appear remotely for reason.
What do you suggest this reason should be? Should it be like a medical issue, limits to medical issues, or should we do we want actually to know why they're doing it?
Yeah, I think so. Medical issue or inability to travel. How about that?
Any thoughts on limiting it to that situation?
So
Bob was saying medical issue or inability to travel.
I would just mention that to the extent that we define a criteria for participation, we're then responsible for policing the criteria. You know, we may have to make like a credibility determination about whether what they said was true or if it was supported, or are we going to require a doctor's note? And that might be difficult, or make some of these things even more contentious than it would be to just say we have a blanket policy of allowing Zoom participation if requested, within a certain number of days ahead of time or something similar.
I have a feeling even if we put that rule there, we're not going to actually go into the reason. I mean, we're not going to make a determination as to that. If they come in and give us a reason, say it is a medical issue or have an inability to travel, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask them additional questions or require more proof than that. But at least that'll limit folks from just for any reason coming up with wanting not to appear and doing it via Zoom. So I don't think necessarily we have to make that determination if we make that the rule.
Okay. Guess I'm just trying to think that through. So if we're going to allow it, no matter what, if they make the request, and we will not, it's just sort of kind of on the honor system, only make the request if you fall in one of these two buckets. I guess that could work.
Is everyone in agreement with that? Is that or do we want to add any other possibilities, or that's going to pretty much fit medical issue and inability to travel?
I would just say medical issue. I wouldn't say inability to travel. That's just too broad and vague.
But
you open yourself up to, I can't travel because I ain't got nobody to watch my dog. I'm just saying,
but if it's like, vague thing. But I mean, we may want to have. I don't think we'll have that issue, but it might be a childcare thing, like that last minute. I mean, I doubt we'll have that issue come up. I don't know if they'll necessarily. I mean, if someone wants to just as we're doing it, because we're not making a factual determination, anyone could just say that medical issue. So at least if it's a legitimate reason that they can't travel and it's not medical, if we're opening it up, I think this is just weeding out some of the folks who might otherwise say, you know what, Zoom is a lot easier. I'm just going to do it via Zoom. So we have it here. So any other thoughts? Okay, so yes.
I agree with you that it's not going to be your property owners that are local. I mean, they're going to be here anyway because they want to show you their disdain for the assessment. But it is definitely going to be the tax reps, and to me, this is not my number one. The interior inspection is my number one matter on this conversation, but to me, it's if they are going to present the information that they need to present in order to convince you that the assessment is incorrect, and that's their responsibility to do. I think it's doing it in person is really the way it should be done, and that we can have, when it comes to commercial properties especially, we can have some pretty, I want to say, frivolous arguments made, and that creates a whole hearing of that opportunity if they're able to do that remotely. And if you're saying that only in these certain situations, even pretty limited medical situations, that's not necessarily going to stop somebody from Arizona from coming in and just saying, you know, well, I've got a medical issue.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to make that comment.
Sure. With that as well, I mean, does anybody have any additional thoughts from the board? I'll go ahead and on the kind of Karen's point, the fact that we may be are going to be here via Zoom. I think that idea of the medical, I think it is a fairness thing. I hope they won't abuse it, but I do see Pete's point that I have a feeling it'll be the folks who, but I think we can see, I mean, we've dealt with these cases a lot, and we've dealt with these tax rep cases a lot, and usually on the papers, we're pretty good. We have a pretty good idea of we have a pretty good sense of things from the papers because they send us big packets. The assessor sends us big packets. What they're going to argue and for what they argue is not going to be as impactful. I mean, it could be, but if they don't end up coming, that's on them, and that might, I don't know what effect it has on us at the end of the day, but we can make a determination if they've done an effective job of if they've met their burden. So I would I think we should keep a similar standard between ourselves and the applicants, but yeah, yes, from Bob here. Anybody else? Should we stick with that? Is that what we were talking about? Applicants can do it via Zoom if there's a medical issue or inability to travel. Or should we say no? Anyone think that we should just say everyone has to appear in person?
I say everyone has to appear. That's how I feel.
Okay.
But I can see either way.
Okay. No, that's fair.
But if I'm voting, I
Sure.
say you got to be up in here. It's just a little more skin in the game when you kind of show it.
Yeah. I mean, we've had some appeals that, that people don't show up to. Karen or Evan, any additional thoughts there?
Not really.
Okay.
No.
Nothing beyond what's been said.
Okay, so I mean, do we want it to? We have two options on the table then. So keep it with to allow the Zoom with the medical issue or inability to travel, or to not allow Zoom. I feel like both of you were on the allow Zoom with those two exceptions. So, well, don't applicants, but yeah, allow Zoom in those two circumstances. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's
for me.
correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's again, we'll vote on this formally at the end of it, but just want to make sure we're all on the same page there. Observers, I'm assuming if we were having a hybrid system, we're gonna allow observers to observe via Zoom. But I'm going out on a limb to make that assumption, but I don't think we have too many.
I think it's automatic. I think if you're actually having the meeting and it's remote, then people will be able to watch it live.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I don't think it's any different really watching it live than if you're going to make a recording anyway for them to watch live.
Right. Okay, and then the recording one, we said we'll go ahead and recording. Okay, so those are those three issues.
If you would like, I mean, if you want to talk about the paragraph 4 or section 4,
yes,
item 4.4, we can just change that to the part that's already in there, meeting places for BOE meetings, and ensure the remote meetings and recordings are arranged and the platform is reserved. We can change it to that, and I think that'll cover what you're talking about as the requirement.
Exactly.
And then 4.6, we would keep the first half of that, administer remote meetings through Albemarle County Zoom account, and then get rid of the rest of that's not necessary.
Perfect. Yeah. So I think we're good from 1 through 4. Let's look at 5. I don't know if there might be something here we may want to. I guess. Okay, so is there anything here we need to change based on the discussion we're having in terms of the hybrid? That should be, well, 5.1 should be fine. 5.2 should be fine. 5.3 is fine, that's up to the public. 5.3.1, I'm assuming that's just a correction, or the more, there's more specifics to the code. Okay, that's, I think there shouldn't be any issue there.
Based on what's edited.
Yeah.
Okay.
5.3.2. 5.4, the majority of BOE members shall constitute quorum. So you had the question there, so I guess that's a majority of BOE members. I think we can keep the language there, and then the understanding is that the majority of us is what are actual members. There's no other, there's not a, we don't have a sixth member.
Right,
so-
we can make that clear here.
Okay.
Do we have to add in person?
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
that we add here, just so it's clear that a quorum must be physically present.
Okay. And should we also add here that so physically present, and then maybe the same, should this paragraph be where we are talking about the fact that we can participate remotely? So it'll be a majority of BOE members shall constitute a quorum for BOE meetings. I'm just saying the quorum must be physically present. Something to that effect for the next sentence, and then maybe do a third sentence and saying that or as long as the quorum is physically present, I don't know, or just,
I would make it a 5.5 and push the other two down,
okay,
and then say that the board members may participate remotely, subject to 5.4 being met, and a reason is provided.
Uh,
and then
Pete,
halfway
it-
around the
it-
half.
If I may, it may be easier, especially in the event that the General Assembly ever makes a change to the statute, to just simply say that board members may participate remotely in accordance with, I believe it's 2.23711, but Pete, you and we can go afterwards and make sure the citation is correct. But my suggestion would simply just to cite the provision of FOIA that allows remote participation.
Okay.
That sounds good to me. So that I'm assuming let's say it's 3711 has that set out in terms of all of the requirements that you had mentioned earlier.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
All
So we
right.
don't have to talk about them specifically, just mention the follow the code and we're good.
Yeah, exactly. You would just simply say that the board has adopted procedure or has adopted the procedures available under 3711.
Well, here, so this is the language we have. So board members may be able to participate remotely, or I guess what we're saying.
So you would just simply say board members may participate remotely as provided in Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711 with the caveat that that Pete and I need to go check the citation and make sure that that's the right.
But we also mentioned as long as 5.4 is met.
Well, the quorum physically present, but even that, I mean, 3711 sets that requirement out.
Okay, all right, so that works then. If that does, then we don't even have to add I don't think we'll need to add the language earlier. The quorum must be physically present then if it's part of the code. So we'll just keep 5.4 the way it is, and then as 5.5 add this. And then 5.5 becomes 5.6, 5.6 becomes 5.7. I don't think we need to do anything else with 5.6 or 5.7, the new 5.6 or 5.7. Anything else we need to add for 5? Okay, so I'll go on. I don't think in terms of the recording and applicants and all that stuff, that's gonna come in later. That's under hearings probably under 8. Okay, number 6. Suggested order of business for meetings. I don't see anything in there. There's a suggested deletion there in terms of the reading of notice, since we don't have that authorizing remote meetings. Paragraph 7, I don't think we're changing anything there. Paragraph 8. So 8.1 doesn't look like we need to change. 8.2. Okay, so we have the language as a suggested addition here under 8.2.2 in terms of the public may be allowed to view meetings remotely. We do need to add, should we add that here as 8.2.3? And then, okay, in the 8.2.1, we said shall be electronically recorded only as required by statute. Should we remove only as required by statute based on our discussion?
It's electronic recording is not in fact required by statute, so.
Okay, so that's, I think our consensus here was that we will go ahead and allow for, go ahead and have it recorded.
I think you want to just make the statement that you're going to.
Yeah,
you're
so
going to
we'll
record.
just delete only as required by statute, just shall be electronically recorded. And then
the
applicants appearing, where should we?
must appear in person, except.
So under 8.3 maybe, because it says the owner of a property who assesses under may appear personally or be represented. Yeah, I think it would be under 8.3.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Take that out of the end of 8.2.2.
Which one? Oh,
Any person appearing before the BOE, including for hearings, must appear in person.
Oh, yeah, we have to look at that, or just unless, if we put that language in there, I guess it'll go there because 8.3 just says appear personally. I don't think it has to necessarily mean that they have to appear in person. Electronically should satisfy it if 8.2 covers that. So at the end of that first sentence of 8.2.2, so including for hearings must appear in person, and then something to the effect of except in the event of a medical issue or inability to travel, may appear electronically. Any? Does that work?
That sounds good to me.
Yeah. Okay, so must be in person except in the event of a medical issue or inability to.
Just say a new sentence.
Oh,
Any
then
person appearing, yeah,
must appear.
may appear electronically in cases of if they have a medical issue or inability to travel or something. I don't know.
My only thing is just the must appear in person, and then that language kind of like
Yeah.
they must, and then you're saying may appear.
Oh,
that's
too
why
common,
that's my only reason I was put the
Yeah.
except language there. It's a long sentence, but
Yeah.
I think that's why I would keep it at that. Like except, good with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So except in the event of that. Again, my language is not necessarily the most eloquent right now. We're just throwing it out there, but I think we'll proofread it and make sure that's what we intended. Yeah. Then 8.3 should be able to stay the same. 8.4 stays the same. 8.5. Okay, 8.5 timing. So this is the total hearing time we've had an hour allotted for each of these hearings for the past few years, and we had this the 20 minutes, and 5 minutes, and then we gave ourselves 15 minutes to discuss. We added that last year to help kind of control the timing of the hearings. There's been a suggestion to reduce that total hearing time to 30 minutes, given the number of hearings we have this year. I feel like we can and we should. I feel like a lot of times when we're giving more time to these cases, not much is added. Again, a lot of it's on the papers, and especially with these commercial appeals. And so I feel like if we have 65, where are we at right now?
65.
Still 65.
But we are going to get more.
Okay. So with that many appeals, I think going to 30 minutes is a good idea. Does anybody else have any objection to that?
Can I?
No objections.
I'm sorry,
No
Mr. Mayor.
objection.
I said, just no objection from me.
So, I'm, now I absolutely think that going to shorter meetings would be great. I just want to see if there can be some flexibility that in certain situations, and I'll tell you that already that Westminster Canterbury is one of our appeals, and the attorney for them has already asked for more time than the hour. Now, I've gone to court with him, and 5 days in court is not enough. So, so I'm not sure how much more than an hour he really wants or needs. But should we have some flexibility? You know, we offer a half an hour slot, and if they asked for more, you know, how should that be an option? It might stop you from going over in a session that would push the next one after it. So it might work better if we allow this as kind of a rule, and kind of up to whoever's, you know, typically Mark's going to be the one setting up the appointments here. I don't know if you want to allow that kind of flexibility, but I know there's going to be a desire for some of it. And typically it's going to be your commercial properties that are going to take more time, and your residential properties that take less generally.
And another question, I think, with that too, is are we going to be, how strict are we with these times? So we have to think about it. Like, do we have a timer and have people stop because people do like to talk? And so that's the other question: is how do we enforce it? I think if we're gonna, one is it's kind of a slippery slope. Obviously, if we do allow that, then we have to either we allow it to everyone or no one. Or do we make a determination? Do they submit their materials and we make a determination? Because we have to do it ahead of time. We can't do it at the day of, because then it messes up, especially if we're going to go, and well, I guess we'll talk about it in terms of scheduling, but because of just how many we have, we may want to go all day and try to get in, I don't know, try to get in 16 hearings in a day. Just set aside a whole, that's how I'm thinking about it right now, but just set aside a whole day. We do 16, like just get these done. Because having to come here for so many half days is gonna take forever. With that, yeah, how do we just say 30 minutes to everyone and that's it, and we time them and just we don't have the time, and what their papers can do, because we all are going to come in here prepared. I feel like with what they've submitted, I feel like as an attorney, this is kind of more like an appeal. The appellate brief someone submits, and you have 50 pages, you read that whole thing. And in terms of the oral arguments of that, they don't need to rehash all that stuff. It's usually in that sense, the appellate panel is then asking questions of I know we're not going to do it that way, but of the applicant, of the assessor, and getting the information we need to fill in the blanks that we think there might be. That's how I'm looking at it. But on the other side, we want to have everyone have the opportunity to speak their mind, to be able to feel like they've had a proper opportunity to appeal their tax assessment that we've heard them. So I don't know, those are a couple of things I'm putting out there. Anyone have thoughts on, do we keep it strictly 30 minutes no matter the circumstances? Do we go longer if someone has given us just cause to? And if they have, do we set aside at the end of certain hearings time to consider these requests? So kind of those are the ways we can, or do we just allow anyone that wants extra time, give them extra time? Those are kind of the three options I see on the table.
So I note that the Supreme Court of the United States provides 30 minutes for oral argument, and I don't think the issues are nearly as complex. And just out of respect for everybody's time, I would favor a shorter period, a highlighting, if you will, instead of an exhaustive review of the papers already presented.
Thanks, Evan. Karen, do you have what do you think?
Well, I do think that we can limit it to 30 minutes, but if we don't feel that we have enough information, then we should, as the board, we should be allowed to extend that. So I'd like to be a little more flexible on that.
Okay.
I would agree that we should have all the information, But sometimes things come up, as we've seen, that require a little more uh, information gathering.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree. If the US Supreme Court only has half hour of oral arguments, why does the Board of Equalization need more than a half hour? But maybe we should allow for an additional 15 minutes if the board needs additional information or has additional questions, something like
Mhm.
that.
Okay, do you have any?
Yeah, I'm all for the 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Yeah. But you know, if they have to submit a request for additional time, you know, with an explanation.
Well, so with that, my concern is I don't want that 15 minutes to happen the day of, because we're gonna,
Oh, yeah.
we're gonna, so
Mhm.
I think it's like, and I think as Karen was kind of suggesting, maybe we have an opening where at the hearing, and this is on our kind of, we don't necessarily give it to them as an option, but it's our kind of prerogative, and we say, okay, we're missing something. We either have them come back or give us supplementary information. So that's another. So the other thing with the 30 minutes, I guess we should finish that thought. But the other thing with 30 minutes is, are we giving them 30 minutes? What we've done with the 1 hour window is that 1 hour window has included the arguments plus our deliberations. So that's the other question is, are we limiting the 30 minutes to arguments and then doing our deliberations on top of that? Or do we want to try to do the deliberations at the same time? Or if we're doing, let's say we're doing 16 hearings in a day or whatever it is, are we doing all the arguments and then as whatever windows we have during the day and the rest of it at the very end, doing our deliberations within those windows when we have opportunities. So not necessarily right immediately after we hear the case.
I think we should do it all in the 30 minutes. That's what I think.
I agree.
So then in essence, we're giving them 20 minutes, I think, 20 to 25 minutes.
So just to be clear on the, so normally, so in the past, it was 20 minutes for them, 20 minutes for me. Now, my time, I typically didn't take all of it, and it really mattered how much they were saying. But I think it would not be inappropriate, that double negative, to require of them they're going to be presenting the information in advance anyway.
Mhm.
To sum it up in a short period of time, let's say 10 minutes. I don't need a lot of time. I'm already giving you all of my information, and all I'm really doing is reacting to anything they've said.
Mhm.
To counter or even agree with sometimes. And I don't need a lot of time. So so obviously it's all up to you, but if you're going to do the whole thing in 30 minutes, including your deliberations, then their initial time is going to have to be short, because then you add a rebuttal time for them after I speak, which is typically when a lot of the repetition would happen. So taking that out or leaving it in, obviously, might be a decision you need to make.
Right. So, okay, so do we think we can fit it all in 30 minutes? That's question. That's number one. Should that be and it would potentially be 10 minutes for them, maybe 7 minutes for your response, and then 3 minutes so that we have 20, so we have 10 minutes. I don't know. I'm throwing numbers out there, but like 10, 7, 3. Is that enough time? And then if and like I said, are we gonna have a strict time? Like, are we gonna have a timer right here? Like, kind of like, okay, this is how much time you have left. So
What if we work backwards? How much time do we need to discuss?
we usually take 10 to 15 minutes to discuss it. I mean, I think because we're not gonna be just working off of what they're saying,
Right.
we're reviewing what's in the papers, and we haven't had before that chance to discuss among ourselves. So
if we're gonna need just say 10, then it's gonna be more than 30. I don't see how it could be. Because when you build in their rebuttal time.
yeah, but we can always, if our deliberations go over, and there might be deliberations that might be really short.
Okay,
Our
right.
deliberations go over, we always have the opportunity at the end of the day to come back to whatever we
Okay,
didn't
oh, okay.
finish our
Okay,
conversation. I
okay.
mean,
All right, that's
good,
fine, that's
but,
fine.
um,
Then I'm all for the 30 minutes.
to stick with 30 minutes. Okay, and then so,
Yeah.
and are we good with the idea of, and we have to think about how we're gonna write in the rules, but going back to giving them extra time, limiting that to situations where we request the additional information. And it's, I don't think necessarily we'll need an argument, and that could be in writing too. They can submit to us a letter or with the attachments that we've asked for, and they can, if they want to do it that way. Should we give that? I mean, should we
Is
limit it
there-
to that?
Is there any support by others for eliminating rebuttal? My experience is the rebuttal time was not very well used, and if we just had one side than the other, that might simplify.
I have a feeling we'll get really upset applicants if we don't hear them out. That's the only thing. So I don't think it has to be long, but I think we should. They are the like any, again, looking at it in a legal in a hearing or anything else, as the plaintiff or the party bringing the action usually have an opportunity to do a rebuttal. So it doesn't have to be a long one, but I think just to hit their points real quick of what they disagree with, because they almost always disagree with this. Obviously, they're here, so they're going to disagree with the assessor. I think I think we will have some folks who are upset if they don't get are able to say that.
And if you
Yeah.
don't mind,
What about
I
like?
would agree with that. I would agree that wholeheartedly. I don't think I should be the one with the last word. Since they're the ones who have to prove their case. And I agree that, there's two parts to this whole Board of Equalization experience, is that they're feeling like they're being heard and they're actually making an argument. So those sometimes aren't the same thing, but I think it's very important that you do give them the opportunity.
And that's
If
the
I
only. Karen, please.
Well, if I could just add to that, I would agree with Peter. And I'd like to add that last year, our biggest time waste wasn't really in the hearing of the appellants. It was really in the time frame. We set aside an hour for each person. And we were really finished at about 45 minutes. So
Yeah.
our biggest time waste was that time period in between. So I'm wondering if we can restructure our request of the appellants to come within a window of time so that we can, rather than just showing up at 11, since they have to be there in person, to be there between 10:15, be there by 10:15 in case we can hear them earlier than 11, say.
Karen, I don't know if we're only doing 30 minutes. I feel like we're not going to have extra time though.
Okay, all right, okay.
And if we do, I have a feeling our deliberations are going to. I think that's what's going to end up happening. Is hopefully we do have deliberations end within 10 minutes, but I have a feeling that we might be using that any extra time we have in between to finish up maybe conversations about prior appeals.
Okay.
We could, kind of in light of what Ms. Pape said, could be like the doctor's office, and you come at a certain time, but might not be available exactly at the time. And we can make that clear when we're setting the appointments. That you just come in and you wait until your hearing is up, and so you might set 30-minute time slots, but you may not want to stop deliberating once you start your deliberation, just if it takes a few more minutes. So you might just want to go ahead and finish. They're waiting, and then when you finish, you call them over,
My
so you have to
concern,
balance all this.
I feel like my concern is kind of twofold. One is in terms of the folks who are coming in, and kind of if we have a time, we got to stop. I think that helps get people out. So and
right.
move the next person in.
Right.
If they see there's some flexibility there, they might talk more. And then the second is I think we can, even if we're in the middle of discussion with deliberations, I think we can set aside, we'll write our notes down, everything else, and just say stop there and then come back to it. I think we'll be fine. I think just having that tight ship of, okay, this is every 30 minutes, we got someone coming in. hopefully they're not late. That's the only, I know we may want to make a note of it in the letters because again, we have so many and we're a volunteer board. I don't think there should be an expectation of like us being here as we're trying to do it. We're trying to listen. But just if they're going to be late, they might not have the full 30 minutes then. So that I think just to be aware of that unless they have an excuse.
So do you want them to be early and give like please arrive
I think at least that
in this time
yeah,
period? Okay.
I think we should have something where they should arrive early, but we will see them right at the time. We're not gonna.
Then they are going to be, because typically you guys are used to saying, okay, we've got what we need from you. We will let you know, and they'll leave, and then you'll deliberate. And I've noticed there's definitely a difference in the way you guys discuss it when they're here and they decide to stay, or when they're not here.
Right.
So in this case, you're going to have the next person waiting, and they're going to be, you're never going to be deliberating, alone.
Yeah.
So
And that kind of goes to, on that point, do we leave all our deliberations to the end? And make it even short, like make our hearings even short. Like we're saying 30 minutes, but maybe have 20-minute hearings. Bam, 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 bam. And then at the very end of the day, we then go back to all of these and then discuss them and it's a longer deliberation. Like, can we do that? I mean, can we like,
Well, let me just add in something here. I think that we have to be very careful to remain conscious of the fact that, these people do deserve their time and that we have to be responsible for, thoughtfully deliberating, no matter how much time it takes, because they deserve that. And so I think that, for me, it's better for us to do the deliberations right after we've heard them, because, if you're hearing, we do have a lot on our plate. And let's say we're hearing 8 appellants a day, it may be hard to keep it all straight. So I'd prefer to deliberate as much as possible within that 30-minute time frame. And if we can't reach a conclusion, then we'll table it until the end of the day. But I think we're better off trying to wrap things up and then deliberating at the end of the day if we can't. So that would be my vote. Just try to get it all done, but also be aware of the fact that these people do deserve our time and attention, as much time and attention as it needs.
I think that's definitely the balance this year is we have so many, but everyone should be heard and they should feel like they have been heard. I think it might be a little different, obviously, with the tax reps versus not about. I mean, I think we're gonna do just as good a job on any of them, but I think it is different between the tax. They're not gonna take it personally, like in terms of being versus the property owner who comes here is gonna. I think we have to be conscious of the fact that we're gonna be acting the same way. We're gonna use the same information, apply the same standards, but in terms of how we handle those hearings, the timing and everything, we don't want to just be a bureaucratic body here that they think we're not listening to them.
Right.
So I think something we should be conscious of in terms of, so on top of your point, Karen, I mean, we can, if people are here, we're gonna deliberate, we're gonna do what we like. This is, again, they're open meetings and it's being recorded. So, so
we will be deliberating, but everybody's gonna be gone, aren't they?
not necessarily, they don't have to be.
Okay.
That's the kind of what Pete was bringing up is what we usually do is
One person will leave and then the other person will wait in the hall, will deliberate, and
Well, they were so spaced out before that the next person wouldn't have been here yet. And
Yeah.
typically, as soon as Mr. Asali would say, okay, we've got what we need, they're out the door.
yeah.
They don't even try to stick around, except for a few exceptions. So that was never really an issue. In this case, I think it is with an accelerated schedule, it would be different though.
if someone comes in early, there's a very likelihood that they're going to sit over there and watch us deliberate for the next, and which is how it was. And that's how there were times. I remember. Early when we were in person, that's how it would work.
Yeah.
Sometimes people would come in early, and I don't know if it really had. We're gonna be deliberating, but we're gonna be deliberating. So it's just like
So
we're looking at numbers. We're not really. It's not nothing personal. So, okay. Okay. With all that said, then, so it sounds like the consensus is stick with 30 minutes. Are we good with 10-7-3, 10 minutes, 7 minutes for the assessor, and 3 minutes as rebuttal? Is that, and then give ourselves 10 minutes? And we kind of,
Yes. Yes, I'm good with that.
anybody have any objections to that? No?
That's good.
Okay, so we'll do that. The
10, 7,
Is that
3,
enough
10.
time for you? 7? Yeah.
Yeah, I present all of my arguments in the written writing in advance. So it's only, like I said, the kind of answering some of the things that are said by the opponent sometimes that I do. And Mr. Arsali, you do a really good job of controlling the meeting. So I think if, as long as you're kind of reminding them their time is getting short, obviously you don't need the little, you know, lighted thing in the middle of the
Okay.
table. But I think you can control that really well, and that would probably be fine.
Yeah. Maybe give them a 2-minute warning, but I think it's
Yeah,
helpful to have like a
exactly.
2-minute warning then at least. And if that's probably something that one of us, it's gonna be tough for me to do if I'm chairing the meeting to also keep time, but if one of us can keep time, it would be helpful. And either you nudge me and say, okay, let them know it's 2 minutes, or whoever's doing it could just stop real quick and say, just letting you know you have 2 minutes left, kind of thing. Obviously not part of the, I don't think necessarily we have to put this part of the rules, but something to think about before our next meeting if one of us can do that, that would be helpful probably. I can do that. Okay, perfect. Okay, so 10-7-3, we're gonna do the 10 minutes and then give ourselves 10 minutes to deliberate. The other question was in terms of extra time. Do we need to, we probably have to add it here under the 8.5 somewhere at the very end, saying, do we need to even add that in there if we want to request that they give us additional information? Does it need to be under the order of procedure, or is that just something we could just do without it being formally part of it?
I don't think I don't, unless Anthony has any different thoughts, I don't think it's needs to be in there.
It doesn't need to be in order of procedure. I will say though, on the topic of it, I don't think anyone is still considering doing this in advance, but whether it's done in advance or whether it's day of, keep in mind that that itself is an action of the board that has to be the subject of a decision in an open meeting. So whether it's going to happen day of or whether it's going to happen in advance, it needs to be the subject of a vote. It can be quick, but it's got to be voted on whether to extend time or not.
So should we give ourselves maybe at the beginning of every day a few minutes of housekeeping? So to the extent there is a request or anything else. And obviously if the request is made during the hearing, then we just have to deal with it during the hearing and vote on that at I guess we just vote on that while they're here, or I think this goes to your letter.
I'm not clear on what Anthony just said. So Anthony, are you saying, I'm not sure I'm following this right. So if the hearing reaches its 30 minutes and they're still deliberating and they're going to stop deliberating to go to the next hearing and then finish their deliberation at the end of the meeting, are you saying they need to vote to stop their deliberation, or are you talking about something else?
No, the very fact of giving the additional time is itself sort of a vote, as long as that happens at the time of what I was concerned with is instead the situation where in advance of a meeting, one member, let's say the chair, decides whether to give additional time or not. I think perhaps with the notion of deliberations being able to be pushed to the end of the meeting, it might make sense that one way you could handle it is at the beginning of a hearing, let's say, the board could decide to have the actual arguments take up the 30 minutes for that particular hearing and then push the deliberations till afterwards.
If someone's requesting additional time.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah, so and we may have to just, as part of our 10 minutes, might be also hearing them argue that's why they need additional time, and then we'll just say but it's that I think in that event that we just push back our deliberations on that hearing.
If I may, one thing about timing and rebuttal, not that court oral arguments necessarily have to be the model for this, but for what it's worth, the way it typically works in appellate argument in courts is that the plaintiff, the petitioner, the appellant decides, is asked in advance whether they want rebuttal, and the rebuttal time is just subtracted from their initial time. So let's say you give them 13 minutes to start. You can ask them, do you want the 13 minutes all up front, or do you want to save 3 minutes for rebuttal or whatever? Which might end up saving you guys a little bit of time and breathing room if you have a plaintiff who doesn't want it, or an appellant who doesn't want it. Applicant. Getting my terminology right.
Well, because again, I think our bigger concern generally as a board is more going to be on the property owners who are not going to be as sophisticated, and I think just giving them that time might be easier than giving them that choice, because they might just be confused. So I would just keep it for our purposes, and then the tax preparers are going to be the ones that are going to be tax whatever their representatives. They're going to be the ones that are going to be more sophisticated, but they're also going to be the ones that are probably going to be requesting additional time. So I don't think we'll have property owners requesting additional time for the most part.
Okay, so in this case then, would you want because this is very specific about timing for each part. Do we need an 8.5.5 that says the board can vote to allow more time for any specific part of the hearing?
Well, we have some more actually 8.5.5 on the back of
You know what? It's actually, oh, sorry.
but yeah.
Well, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
That just gives you the ability and makes it clear how you would do it.
I guess let's go back to this then. I think we've had our discussions. We have a pretty decent idea of what we want to do. So let's kind of go back to the actual rules of procedure, and then we'll kind of put it all in. Okay. So we did 8.3, 8.4, 8.5, 8.51, the swearing in of witnesses. 8.52. So 8.52 again, we the 10.73. So 8.52 would be 10 minutes. 8.53 would be 7 minutes. And 8.54 would be 3 minutes. Okay, so then the question is, let's look at what the rest of 8 says, if there's anything else. It looks like that would be, so we do need a provision for the request for extension of time and how we're gonna handle that. And then, I guess, and then also we discussed if we wanna give them more, I guess that's the same idea, right? We're just trying to figure out to the extent how we're going to handle the request for additional time. Should we say that it has to be done in advance? Like this, a lot of this is going to be important for, I guess, the letter that comes out from your office. I guess you're sending them a letter in terms of procedure, right? The Board of Equalization procedure. Right. So I think it'll be important for them to be aware of these timing and just let them know to put everything in writing, kind of submit that we're going to review everything, and it's really important to submit everything in writing ahead of time.
Because of the large number of cases this year. Yeah, maybe.
But I don't know if we want to necessarily, because we don't want to also, at the same time, we don't want to tell them that because we have so many cases, we're not giving them as much time as we usually do, kind of thing.
I think we should. Yep, I think we should request in advance, or we'll get a request every time, or people never can get everything out that they think they need to say when they've got a timeline like this. So
maybe just simply putting in there that we don't necessarily have to. I mean, if someone brings us a motion or brings us a request in terms of additional time, we'll deal with it. I guess ad hoc. We'll just deal with it as we deal with it. Not necessarily putting in the rules or putting in your letter. But I think the one thing we may want to put in there, just so we have it there, is in terms of the additional information that the board may request additional information to be submitted at a later date. I don't know if we should put that in the. If that's not part of the rules of procedure, are we limited in asking for that?
That's an Anthony question.
I apologize. One more time.
So if we don't, right now we're setting up and it says, okay, these are the 3 times they have, but they're going to be, we've talked about that there may be situations where we might ask the petitioner to submit additional information to us.
Right.
And do we need to spell that out in these rules of procedure? Or if it's not there, can we still do it?
Yeah, you can absolutely do that without it being in the rules of procedure.
Okay. So I'm fine with leaving it out then. So we just keep our rules are this, and then if we need it, that's on, again, our prerogative if we ask for it. And we don't have a provision then for anybody asking for additional time. If they do make that request, then we have to deal with it.
So in the event, when Mark calls the attorney for Westminster Canterbury and says, the board is allowing 30 minutes for a hearing. And he's like, well, I want to ask the board for more time. Do we put that in the very next meeting under new business or under one of the sections where you guys then consider whether you want to give him more time? And he provides information as to why he needs more time. And that's part of the question.
Do we need a rule for that, or can we?
I don't know. I don't know.
So that's the question. Do we need a rule for that? Or
I
can we?
think I would not recommend going beyond the 30 minutes if 30 minutes is standard without there being a written rule contemplating the possibility.
So there might be a section in here where we say that you consider in new business during the meeting.
Requests,
A
maybe
request.
just requests for kind of the idea, requests for extension must be submitted at least for the prior meeting, like,
At least a week in advance of the meeting, something like that.
but we may not be able to hear it though.
30 days in advance of the meeting.
Well, at least as long as it's before, if we're hearing it because we have to do it at an open meeting.
Right.
So we would have to have an open meeting between the time of the request and the actual hearing happening.
Exactly. So I'm talking about, when he's setting up the initial one, and the hearing might not be till the end of July or early
Yeah.
August. And I'm hoping that's going to be the case in the Westminster situation. But when we call him next week or tomorrow, and he says, wait a minute, I need more than 30 minutes. And then you can just in your next meeting, not when he's having a hearing, but in your next meeting, just.
So that comes with
Yeah.
a timeline. We just have to have, in terms of the request, because if we're
Right.
making a rule with
Right.
that the request for an extension must be made. I don't know how many, it has to be made, at a minimum, it has to be made before the prior meeting. So I don't know how we want to put that in there, or do we say 14 days, or do we say, because we have to be able to consider it.
Okay, are you saying 14 days or eight
Before
number of
the
days
actual
in
hearing.
advance of when you decide to extend it?
No, before their actual hearing dates.
Oh, so I'm saying that he wouldn't even set up a hearing date
Okay.
prior to this until we answer this question.
But we have to have some time, right? Maybe it's 30 days then. We just have to have a time frame where before the actual hearing, we're able to consider that.
Okay.
So
We'll have to know when we're setting it up, how
right.
much time slots basically we
Right.
would need to give them at that point.
I think 30 days should give enough time, right? I mean, that'll give us enough time to at least if they do come before us. Now we'll have an opportunity to hear the question, the issue of
Right.
extension, and then also then we can have it heard anytime after. So,
Okay, maybe I'm not following it. So
Yeah.
do you need to make the decision 30 days before the hearing that they would have?
they have to know. They just have to make
They
a
notify
request.
you 30
They have to
days
notify
before
us.
you make the decision.
Before they're here.
Before 30 days before the hearing. Okay.
30 days before
Sorry,
they're
I'm
here.
being,
No, it's fine. We should make it clear.
okay.
That's what I mean. I'm throwing it out there. I mean, I don't know if we just have to have an opportunity to be able to hear it at an open hearing before their actual hearing takes
Right.
place.
Correct.
So,
Take a vote on it.
yeah, so we can, I don't know if that's gonna be under 8, it wouldn't necessarily be here under 8, or it might be under 8, but not 8.55. It might be before that, or I guess we're doing the timing in here, so maybe it does go there.
So they would just have to put in a request prior to your next meeting. It still have to be 30 days prior to whatever hearing date that they would have, but just prior in writing to your next meeting so you could make a determination.
So we can have that, yeah,
So, and we want that to be in writing with the reasons why it would.
right.
Okay.
Should we come up with language for that?
Property owners must request in writing 30 days.
Yeah. I mean,
If they want more time at a hearing, yeah.
What are we calling them? They're appellants or commissioners?
The appellant.
appellant.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. Thank you.
It's our, we give them an extra 30 minutes. I don't know.
Well, then, I mean, it's a case by case basis.
I know it is, yeah.
So I think most likely we're gonna deny it, because I don't see a justifiable reason. I don't care what, I mean, I don't know if there's gonna be justifiable reason for extra time, but maybe there will be. I mean, we'll just have to figure that out. But, so if appellant requests additional time, again, this is gonna be like 8.5.5.
Additional time for a presentation or something like that.
Or it's gonna be going under
Yeah.
the testimony and all this other stuff, so.
Yeah,
Time, appellant must submit. A written request. Nation. At least 30 days. The other thing to think about as we're thinking about timing, there are going to be people who withdraw or may not show up on the day of the hearing. So we might have open slots too. Maybe we won't have any, but there's a possibility of having 30-minute open slots in the middle. So that's something to think about too. I don't know if that's where we put in the extra time, or it's probably gonna be more deliberation time, I guess. If we need it, extra deliberation time will fall in there, but it's something to be aware of. Okay, so that's, so we have a potential 8.5.5 then, because I wrote this, but we can change it however to make sure clear. But so if appellant requests additional time, appellant must submit a written request with an explanation at least 30 days prior to their hearing dates. Something to that effect.
And in advance of the next board meeting.
I'm hoping that we have,
Or it'll just be deliberated in the next board meeting.
yeah, we'll just, yeah. I mean, as long as they do it, then our mechanism is gonna just be deal with it.
Is Westminster Canterbury the only appellant who's looking for?
They're the only ones who specifically asked. However, knowing some of the applicants in the past that were tax reps and how long they talked, I would not be surprised if we got more requests for longer time.
Okay, so what was 8.5.5, then 8.5.6 would be discussion among BOE members, including questions. 8.5.7 motion second. Okay, 8.5, all motions and votes will be recorded in the minutes of the BOE. Okay, so I think that's all good. 8.6, request by taxpayers to personally inspect the property. Okay, this is a rule we had last year. It came up. Will be considered during the hearing for the property if the majority of the members present agree that inspection is necessary. Okay, I think that language is fine. And anybody, please feel free to jump in if there's anything you all want to say with these. But as I'm going through them, 8.7, they might withdraw appeal. They have to do it in writing. Number 9. Okay, so 9.1. Okay, so 9.2 we may have to discuss because of that issue that's been brought up. This is the postmarking and all that. Like I said, I'm gonna, once we get into that discussion, I don't know if we want to discuss it here. We're gonna just keep this what it is. But like I said, I'll discuss this generally, but when we get to the specific issue, the request that was made to the board, I'm gonna recuse myself because that was my neighbor that made that request. And I guess we'll do that after. We can do that after. This is not gonna be part of the rules procedure. But as it stands, 9.2, anybody want to change that for any reason? This says applications must be returned or postmarked by the due date required by Albemarle County Code section 15702, where the BOE shall not accept the appeal. Do we want to have, so what does 15702 say?
15702 actually doesn't say as much as I thought it said.
Okay.
It says that the application has to be in by March 30th.
Okay.
Period.
Oh.
And then there's supplemental, which it'll go on about supplemental.
Okay.
But for reassessment, which all of these are,
Right.
It says March 30th.
But we have a lot coming.
However, we also we want everybody to come to us first and do a review request.
Right.
And then, and we don't want them to apply to the board until we've had a chance to review it and give them a response. So we allow, and the code used to say this specific wording, that 30 days after the date of the letter of response on the review, they can appeal to the Board of Equalization. It gives them the ability to come to us first and then make a decision based on our decision what to do. And Anthony and I will be working on getting that back in the code to make it very specific. But you know, as of right now, the code section doesn't say that.
So we probably should change that.
So I think we should change 9.2
Okay.
to reflect what we actually do.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
Because we certainly aren't going to deny anybody that applied after March 30th this year, because it's been our procedure for years.
So 9.2. Anybody have thoughts on the language there? Because so what the language before was just simply said 30 days from what, and that was
dated the letter as the assessor's letter as a response to the appeal, to the review request.
okay. But then the date that you have on your letter, you're mailing it right away, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I do. So so do we want to keep it at that, the 30 days from the date of the letter? Or do we want to, should it be 30 days from when it was postmarked for the return? Like I said, that issue has come up and I don't want to deal with this specific issue. I don't personally want to deal with the specific issue, but I think in terms of our rules though, we need to address it and make it clear. And especially since we do need to change this language with 15702. So please, anyone, if you all have thoughts.
Well, I can explain the situation if you'd like for detail. I will, we'll make a decision on the review, then we will create a letter. I will sign the letter and then it gets sent to the mailroom and then it goes out. So I might have a letter dated April 5th and it might get postmarked April 6th. The rule has always been based on the date of my letter, not the postmark of my letter. However, on the other end of the spectrum, the deadline for them to appeal, the deadline for them to pay a tax bill, the deadline for any due date that the county does or any government does, and government entity does, is either that due date or postmarked by that day. So while my letter may not be postmarked the same day as the date of the letter, the messaging is very clear. It's clear. I don't want to say very. It's clear that you have to return it by 30 days of the date of the letter. And that returning it, the rule is generally that it has to be received by that day or postmarked by that day. So that's kind of the current debate that's going on, or the situation that we have.
Does anyone have any thoughts on, do we keep the language the way it is? Want to clarify anything? The 30 days. One, I'm assuming we all want to give 30 days because I think if we don't give the 30 days, we're going to have if we don't put that in here, we're going to have some issues. We'll have a lot less hearings potentially, but don't think that would be fair.
It would have basically said that we've been lying to everybody.
That we will. I don't think that's a good idea. So, yeah.
Well, I'll make a proposal then. We changed 9.2 to say, and we even take out section 15702. Albemarle County, sorry, let me start at the right spot. Applications must be returned or postmarked by March 30th or 30 days after the date of the assessor's letter response to the review. You can change that wording a little bit. Or the BOE shall not accept the appeal.
Might want to say whichever is later.
Whichever is later, yes. Actually, that's part of it. Yes. That is the policy we actually have been following, and it would be clear if it's here. And we will clean up all the rest of the wording going into next year.
So March 30th or 30 days after assessors letter of review is this response?
Review response, yes. Review response letter.
Whichever.
Correct. And if you want even more clarity, you can add another sentence that says that the due date, that it must be received or postmarked as of the due date.
Well, it has the applicants must be returned. Applications must be returned or postmarked. It's already.
Okay, sorry.
So that part is
You're right,
there.
right.
It's just the date of the. So I think question one is, do we keep that? Like applications must be returned or postmarked by that date. It sounds like everything is being returned by that date, and that's been the rule we've had. It sounds like that seems appropriate. I don't know if anybody has any objection to that. Please speak up.
No.
Then two is going to be the question is the letter. Do we base it on the date of the letter from the assessor's office that's on the letter, or do we do it on their postmark date or whatever? I mean, do we want to use a different date on that, or do we want to just go with what's on the letter of it, on the letter?
What is how do you base? I pay my tax bill and how do you determine if it might be late?
Okay, so what makes this more complicated is the flexibility that we allow, the 30 days after the letter. So most due dates are published due dates. They're in the code. Like the March 30th date is just March 30th.
Yeah.
And there's no wiggle room there. And the due date for paying your tax bill is June 25th. So, you know, it's not based on 2 weeks after we send you the bill or a month after we send you the bill or anything like that. So in this case, through allowing that flexibility, you know, we're adding a little uncertainty to it.
Yeah.
Now, on the back of the notice that we send in January, the one that, you know, that you get in the first place and say, oh my God, what happened to my assessment? On the back of that notice, it's very clear. It's the clearest thing we have that it'll be 30 days after the date of my letter. So
It's just stay consistent.
yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And the only thing is, I think we just have to make it clear because again, this issue has come up, and
Correct.
the argument being made is that it shouldn't be based on the date of the letter, which again, if this is the language we have, this is the language we pointed to it, and we say, okay, this is the date of letter, and it doesn't. I mean, they're going to have enough time. It's not like it's 30 days from the date. The only question became was, okay, this was 30 days. My 30 days should have started 2 days later, or whatever, when it was postmarked, because the assessor is writing this letter, say May 25th. It's not going out until May 27th, and I'm not receiving it until May 30th. So my 30 days, does it start on May 25th? Does it start on the 27th? Does it start on 30th? I think we just have to be clear as a board and like I said, and consistency. Do we stick with what the assessor has? And even though it gets there 5 days late, the only concern I would have is if for some reason it got there 20 days late or got lost in the mail or something like that, then that's where I would have a real concern.
That is a weakness of this process. I mean, when it comes to paying your tax bill, it doesn't matter if you ever got your notice, your tax bill in itself, you still have to pay it, or you have to pay late fees, because everybody knows that you have to pay your tax bill and that the due date is June 25th. However, because this, you know, if you don't you don't know exactly when this letter is going to be showing up. So, and the idea of it is not that we're going to give you 30 days to think about it. We're giving you a time period that includes the 30-day window starting from the date of the letter. So, whether you have a week to think about it or not, all you have to do is all you have to do is apply. So
I think anything involving the mail is just arbitrary anyway. So the only way to maintain consistency is for it to always be our date, your date.
Yeah.
The date that's on the letter. we can't control, you know, I ship a lot of stuff for my wife and I can put it in the mail at the same time and some of it don't start tracking for 2 days, you know, and it's just what it is. It's just too arbitrary. So for the purposes of consistency, it should just be internal. What's happening?
The
here?
only thing is, what do we do in this situation where the letter does not get there, or just gets there really late? Are we, by having this language, on one hand, I think we should have it, like, if no one if they don't receive the letter, they should, maybe there should be a follow-up email, I don't know, like, if they don't receive the letter, that's one thing. And the other thing is, and we don't have it here, but it says return, the assessor's office accepts these via email too. So it's not like when you're sending it back, you can make sure get it to the assessor's office. And I don't know if we have to make that clear or something like that, but that's for another, that's outside of what our thing is. But in terms of this, do we deal with that here in the rule if they don't receive it, or just if that situation comes up? It's just this, the language that says we shall not accept it. So that's only, I doubt it would happen, but you never, again, with the mail, you never know.
Yeah.
Do we add that language there? I mean,
now the mail's gotten better, but was it last year?
It was last
really,
year.
really
Yeah, it was
bad.
bad.
And we didn't
It's
have
really
that
bad.
issue even then. Because the 30-day window, you know, pretty much covers that.
and it should be, if it doesn't get to them, it should be, at least by that point, it should
It
be
would be
returned
returned
to
to
you.
us, and then we would be aware of it, yes.
Another point is you don't necessarily have 30 days. You know, you might have 27, somebody else might have 24, you know.
Right.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, don't really have 30, you know.
Karen, Evan, do you have any thoughts on this point before we move on? Because it sounds like we'll just keep between the discussion here is we'll just keep what it is, but you all have any additional thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I've always thought that, I mean, I deal with these notice provisions in other cases, and I'm always amazed that 30 days doesn't actually mean 30 days. It means, you know, the portion of 30 days that remains when you get the decision through the mail, but that seems to be consistent. So I'm fine leaving things as they are.
Karen, do you have anything you want to add to it, or?
No, not really. I think
Okay.
it's fine.
All right, so we'll just have that language. So applications must be returned or postmarked by March 30th or 30 days after assessor's review response letter, whichever is earlier, or the BOE shall not accept the appeal. Okay. Last thing before we get on these rules, the inspection requirements. So what's, I guess, Pete, since this is something you feel strongly about, I think kind of open up to you to give us the reason why, and then I guess we can discuss.
Okay, so this has always been a residential issue, not a commercial issue. I mean, commercial properties we can get into easily, no matter what we're doing, or if they're based on income, we don't even need to physically get into the property necessarily. But when it comes to residential properties, there's a huge difference in the range of values in Albemarle County from the bottom of an E-grade property up to the mansion properties. And so grade is a huge contributor to the determination of value. And so besides grade, condition is the next most important part of what value we're going to come up with. So without getting inside a property, we can determine the grade and condition. And we do on a lot of properties that we don't do reviews on. But when it comes down to contesting, you know, is my property really an M or an L or an A grade? Is it in fair condition or good condition or just average for the property type for the age? That really comes down to being able to see a lot of detail inside the house. And you know, my appraisers are not interested in looking at anything in a house except the house itself, the ceiling heights, the finishes, the condition of the drywall, if there are leaks coming through and stains, how much crown molding there is, you know, different parts of the finish, all of that, and you can't get a good idea of all of that from pictures. And you can get an idea of it, And, you know, typically if you're looking at a property in the, let's just say the MLS pictures, they provide a lot of photos, and typically all those are online when a property ever sold. And you can look at all this and get a general idea of the interior, but even then you could visit a property and get a bigger picture. And to me, if a property is under review and someone is saying that my office has not done an appropriate job or made a decision that was appropriate based on grade or condition, it's imperative that we get that access to be able to see in person what that situation really is.
Mhm.
So that's kind of my view of it. And you know, there are obviously we do exterior inspections all day long. We measure the outside of the building. That's our standard way to measure. But all of those details when it comes to that large range of grades is really an interior thing. And I have to tell you, so we had 380 properties, parcels that were reviewed this year. And there's only two that didn't let us in. One that hasn't let us in yet, and the one who hasn't let us, the two that haven't let us in, we just, you know, we have information on their properties. And as far as we're concerned, that information is correct. So we made no change on the review. I believe that in order to prove their case, they can't do that without that interior inspection. So you can decide, obviously you can decide whatever you want to do, that you can weigh that if they don't allow that interior inspection to happen, that'll just be the way you weigh whatever they give you. And that's fine. If that's what you want to do. I just believe that to make a real determination of the value, which is what we're all kind of tasked to do, we can't do it without that. And there is, and I've shared this with you in the email, I believe, authority for me to decide when an inspection is necessary. And so what I'm saying is, I think under review, an interior inspection is necessary. Under general conditions, an exterior inspection is appropriate unless we are then invited in. Quite often when the appraiser is out at a property, you know, obviously they go to the door and say, I'm here to just confirm that our data is correct on your property. Quite often they'll have a conversation. They say, oh, come on in and take a look at it. But other times it'll just be, I'm going to measure the outside, make sure our dimensions are correct. Is your basement finished? Stuff like that. So it really matters. There are different scenarios where different levels of inspection are appropriate. And I just believe that this scenario is one where that higher level of inspection is necessary.
Evan, I'm going to turn it over to you because I know you had some thoughts here. So
yeah, I mean, I guess what I'd be most interested in hearing is from Anthony. It sounded like he had prepared a memorandum or you know, some thoughts on this. I've looked into it a little bit. This is not legal advice. It's just me speaking as a board member and trying to think the issue through. I did find a case from the Wisconsin Supreme Court that said, you know, conditioning the appeal on allowing an interior inspection is a violation of the Fourth Amendment because it's a warrantless search for information. I'm also concerned that it might be a due process violation since the General Assembly statute doesn't say, you know, it grants the right to appeal and it's not conditioned on an interior inspection. That's not a recommendation. I'm just expressing, you know, my personal thoughts and would just like to hear Anthony's response on those issues or any other legal research that he's done on whether we could impose this requirement as part of the appeal process.
So if you wouldn't mind sharing, I'd love to see that Wisconsin opinion. No court, state or federal that covers Virginia that I have been able to find a decision from has opined on the Fourth Amendment search and seizure question that you raise. You know, as Pete says, at some level, it is perhaps an evidentiary issue, but reviews under the statute that we have in Virginia, reviews are holistic in nature. And I've become aware of situations where you have an applicant who's seeking review of their assessment, and they're challenging some part of the assessment, but as it turns out, upon inspection, there may actually be more than one. Problem or divergence that the assessment has from what the actual condition or items on the property are. And so without being able to do a full inspection, Pete's office is going to be unable to come to that holistic answer as to what the appropriate assessment is going to be for a property. Just using that as an example, if there are two things about a property that are off in the assessor's office's records, one that tends to increase the value of the property, one that tends to decrease the value of the property, we might presume that your average taxpayer is going to take exception to the thing that increases the value of the property erroneously, but is not going to mention the thing that erroneously decreases the value of the property. And so without the ability to go in and take a holistic view of the property at large, Pete's not able to correctly reassess the property on appeal. I see there's something in the chat here.
Yeah, so I put the case from the
excellent.
Wisconsin
Thank you.
Supreme Court. I guess one question I have is, do you know of other localities around the Commonwealth that have conditioned the right to appeal an assessment on an interior inspection?
I do not. I'm not certain that I would characterize it as conditioning the right to appeal on accepting internal inspection, but rather it's more a matter of Pete finding that there is cause to amend his assessment without being able to view the inside of the property. Obviously, the board's board's decision about how to evaluate an appeal that it gets is a decision that it can make independently of Pete's, and whether it believes for its own purposes that the internal inspection is necessary. But when it comes to Pete making his decision, or his office making a decision about whether to amend an assessment based on an appeal, a lower level appeal to his office rather than the BOE, I think that separately is within Pete's purview to decide whether or not he has the information he needs in order to consider a change in assessment.
So I hope I understand the proposal well. I don't have it in front of me right now, but wouldn't the present proposal, if Pete's not able, and Pete and his office are not able to render a decision, wouldn't that block the appellant or would-be appellant from proceeding to the Board of Equalization level? If they decline an interior inspection, and Pete's office declines to issue or to participate in kind of the reassessment process, doesn't that sort of have the de facto effect of blocking the appeal or conditioning it on the interior inspection?
Well, no, because keep in mind, a person does not have to, although it's Pete's office's hope that everyone will go through the lower impact step of seeking his review before going to the Board of Equalization. It's not statutorily a bar to going to the Board of Equalization that you do or do not seek Pete's review first. Incidentally, a person doesn't have to go through the Board of Equalization either before they have the right to go to circuit court if that's what they so choose. And for what it's worth there, if a person were to go to the Board of Equalization, were to go to circuit court to challenge their assessment, then I think it's I hope it's fairly uncontroversial to say that a subpoena could easily issue for inspection of the inside of the home if a challenge were brought in circuit court.
I think
But each tribunal, including this board, gets to make its own evidentiary decision, and if it's this board's determination that it's willing to consider an appeal in the absence of a full inspection of the inside, that's this board's prerogative.
So I guess just to put a finer point on it, is there any concern in your mind that the red line distributed by Pete and in the 2 weeks ago could be violative of the law or the Constitution as written?
I would like to look at the reasoning of that Wisconsin court before I say for sure, because even though a Wisconsin court ruling doesn't apply in Virginia, if the reasoning is sound, the reasoning is sound, right? And I'd like to take a look at that before I said for certain. But again, if you go before a court, and it would stand, to my mind, it would stand to reason that a Board of Equalization is similar in this regard. The reason that you don't have a Fourth Amendment problem is because the homeowner, have put the question into issue. It's not the situation where Pete, as the assessor, has pointed to a particular property and decided on his own initiative that he must go into it. The appellant is sort of, by their decision to appeal, putting the state of their home at issue. And so they still don't have to allow an inspection necessarily, but in that case, the tribunal, or Pete for his purposes, is not constrained to accept or consider the appeal without getting the necessary information to make his decision.
Yeah. So just go ahead.
If you don't mind jumping in, I think we can kind of wrap up the discussion relatively quickly. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about it more, we can, but I mean, just the thought is, it sounds like to me, in terms of the assessor's review, these are two separate steps. You have the assessor's review, and then you have the Board of Equalization, us reviewing it. And that first step doesn't necessarily have to occur for us to review these. You can appeal directly to us. So with respect to the first step, Pete's office can require an interior inspection. Then the question is, for us, do we also require an interior inspection? I understand Pete's points in terms of wanting to this happen, and that it's clear and have more information, and we get more information through that. But I think it is can be potentially, especially since we only have the one this year, and it hasn't been a recurring issue. I feel like we're putting ourselves out on a limb a little bit if we want to say we make this a condition to come before us. I think we are all sophisticated enough to say, okay, they didn't come in and they're specifically not allowing for an interior inspection. And based on that, we can make decisions that we can consider that fact, that we don't maybe have, it's their burden to prove. And we don't have that, we might not have enough information for them to meet their burden if they don't have the interior inspection, but it's maybe more of a case-by-case basis versus putting this requirement in there. And again, I see why you all want to do that. I'm just afraid especially if we don't have an example of other counties doing this, we're putting ourselves out on a limb to put this out there for our rules. So, that's, I don't know if anybody else have any other thoughts, but, or if you want to talk about this more, we can, but I'm just, as I'm hearing it, that's kind of this is my personal thought on this, is I don't think it's not necessary, and I think we might find more problems. It might create more problems.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
This isn't really written properly anyway, because it doesn't really say what you'll do if they don't allow it. But based on this conversation, I think having the conversation is great in that you all are aware of, at least to me and my staff, how important we think the interior inspection is. Ironically, the same people who wouldn't let us inside the house wouldn't even let us onto their property and said we had to inspect it from the street. So, I mean, that kind of bypasses any argument of, being concerned about being infected by something by going inside their house. But having said all that, this was my idea to add 9.3, and I'll withdraw that request if that will help.
Do we want to
For
have
me, I would like 9.3, I would just change the one word. I would say property owner instead of must, I would just put may.
well, then
May.
that's,
May or may not,
well, I think Pete's goal here is the must. I think that was the goal, but it may, I don't think we even need to have it.
Moves Pete a little closer.
Well,
I don't know if it's,
if you're going to consider something like that, is just we recommend that an interior inspection happen. It might be a different way to do it.
but I mean, no one's really looking.
But
at the
that's
rules
not-
either, so it's not like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought the distinction between the reassessment and the Board of Equalization makes perfect sense. I mean, if you guys are going to spend your resources doing kind of a non-required step of taking another look, I totally understand why you'd want to condition that on the interior inspection. And maybe there's a different version of 9.3 that draws that distinction and gets you the access if you're going to burn the resources, if it were worded differently.
Well, it shouldn't be in our, that doesn't necessarily have to be in our rules, though. This is
Right.
a discussion about what's in our rules. Pete's office can have you can have your own rules in terms of they can have whatever rules they want. I don't know if it's not like, I don't know if it's, I think we just consider it on a and if this issue comes up again, this is something we can address again next year. If this becomes a thing and we have lots of people coming in and saying no, because it's not, we've never had this issue before, I don't recall.
We have not. We've
it's
only
just-
had one person that I remember before that wouldn't allow an interior inspection. But we weren't, it mainly came up during the pandemic and we weren't doing them anyway.
That's right. Well, one person really wanted us to do
The one that that definitely went the other way.
So, I mean, I would say we just, for now, let's strike it, go forward without, but I mean, unless someone has a strong opinion otherwise, but. Okay, so I think we've discussed it all. Anybody else want to add anything to this? Otherwise, let's go ahead and vote on the rules, the procedure as we've amended them. Because we need to have this in place, I'm assuming, before our next meeting. So let's go ahead and vote. I think we have it all there. I think between myself, I know Pete's been taking notes. I think there were some things we edited today. I don't know if you all want to go through all that, but I think as we were going through it, we discussed it. We agreed to the term, agreed to it. So before we put this on before I ask for a motion, any other comments or thoughts on this? All together?
Mr. Arsali, can you have a motion on the changes that were proposed today, subject to approval of it at the beginning of your next meeting, after we actually put it in print and
Or
you
should we
all
just-
can review it?
Or should we just wait
Just
till
wait.
next? We'll just wait, because if we're gonna have
Okay.
it subject to approval next time, we'll just wait
Then-
till next
okay.
time.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll table the motion, we will have a motion now, but we'll have this all in finalize what we, but make sure, and I'll review it, and then we'll approve it at the next meeting. Okay, perfect. Okay, all right, now moving on. This is a fun part, determining the hearing dates for reassessments and supplemental value appeals. So, okay. Anybody else need a minute to step out? We can we'll adjourn for a few minutes.
Oh, talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, I guess we can talk date, just generally speaking.
I'll be right back.
Or we can wait, let's just give it 5 minutes. We'll wait 5 minutes. And before Pete, we have 65 now.
Correct.
What's the highest possible we could have? What do you have left to review? Like what's out there?
I have an attorney who's representing 14. And it quite possibly could be all 14 of those. And then there are a few others. So let's say 80.
Are the 14, are they like identical
14
or they're
separate, you know, rural area, very high-end properties.
okay, they're
They're
not
all different.
they're all different.
Yeah, I mean, they're similar themes because they're, most of them are conservation easement and that's part of the,
Okay,
so
so they're gonna want 14 separate here. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay.
yeah, I believe so.
So 65 plus 14, and then you said what else was there? It's possible.
Plus a few, maybe 5. So I would,
So 84, 85.
85, yeah.
Okay, and then we were talking about it here. If we're doing a full day, and we're doing a half hour each, should we go, like, how many do we want to fit during the day? Are we good? Do we want to go like 8 to 5 and then have like a 30-minute lunch in between? Or is that gonna be too intense? I mean, I don't mind doing that, just getting it done with, getting as many done in a
Getting it
day.
done.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so if we did 8 to 5, what is that? That's 9 hours, less 30 minutes for lunch, 8.5 hours. So we have 17.
And I can provide lunch and we can just have that kind of like the board of supervisors does for their closed meeting. They always have dinner, but
Yeah.
as long as you guys tell me what you want in advance and we can probably set up some way where you do it through email. Tell me what you're gonna have and we'll have it all ordered. And so it gets delivered at noon or whenever you're gonna break.
All right, that's perfect. The only thing is that, like, I guess within the 30 minutes, bathroom breaks, we don't really have time. I mean, we just have to kind of, I guess that's where there might be delays here, a couple minutes here
Yeah.
and there. And
Yeah.
if maybe our deliberations, we cut some of them short and just do them at the end, or that's the only thing is if we do this, we might be actually going, if we're taking on 17, we might be even going to 6 because we may end up, there might be little delays in there. Maybe that's too much, but and then we may have some deliberations that we end up at the end. And then, like I said, but at the same time, we might have folks withdraw, or we might have some windows in the middle,
Right.
too. So should we try to go for 17?
You're talking about 17 hearings a day?
Is that doable?
That takes us, that's 5
8.
days. We can do it all in 5 days.
It's 8 AM to 5 PM, that's fine.
Yeah, it might get us, we might go to 6.
And we need to-
8 AM to 5 PM
You
in
know
terms
what?
of hearings.
Well, we need to have more days because.
Oh, yeah.
So that there's dates when people are available, not just you as board members, but as the public.
Yeah. So how many days should we set aside? Because again, our goal would be then to try to just do, because again, and we also don't want to go and come back. So when we're scheduling them, we don't want to have just like windows, like schedule, yeah.
Right.
If we're doing too many like extra days, I just want to make sure like, yeah, we're not.
And I want to advertise all the possible days that you might end up needing, right, all at one time.
So maybe
7 days, maybe
8.
8 days.
I'd say 8, yes.
8 days.
8 days. And the supplementals, we'll just do one in each of those.
Right.
So 8 days between now and September 1st is what we need to each find. I don't know what the best way of doing this is.
It's an entire week. No, it's-
Do it all. It's not our full-time job.
Starting in 3 weeks, right?
Oh, yeah, when's
Is
the
it
earliest?
3 weeks for notice?
Yeah, I need to be able to advertise it 10 days before the next hearing, but it takes up to a week to actually get the advertisement ready and into the paper. I would say 3 weeks would be helpful.
And
2.5 weeks.
Yeah, we need to coordinate with folks.
And we need to be able to, start lining
So
the,
should we go and start in July?
Okay.
No way sufficient.
Is beginning of the week or end of the week better? Or middle of the week?
My schedule generally is flexible. Like I can move things around. I don't think I have any hearings. I know Evan's gonna have a limited, I know his schedule is probably gonna be on the more, I think he just has more hearings and stuff, so I think he might have things already set. Bob, how about yourself?
The last week of June would be,
Who can we do this last week?
would be enough time for advertising if you want to start.
And to coordinate
And to coordinate, yes.
folks. Okay.
I can do June the 30th. We start on June the 30th.
Sure. Yeah, right.
Does that work for everybody?
I can't be here.
You can't? Okay.
My vacation starts to.
When does your what's your vacation date? do you think?
25th through July 3rd.
What about the 5th, 6th, and 7th?
That's cool.
Everybody, people have,
I'm good with that. I'm here.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm fine with it.
well, do we want to just do those 3 days? Or maybe the 6th and 7th?
I'm fine with bunching them all three and just try to get push through this as much as we
Yes.
can. But
Yeah.
the only issue with that is gonna be with the people availability of people, because that's gonna be sort of July week. So
Oh,
our
right.
applicants, their balance might not
July,
be, so maybe just 2 of the days. Or we can advertise all 3 days and see if you fill it up if we don't.
Yeah.
Evan?
I can do 6 and 7. I cannot do 5th. 6
Okay.
and 7.
Okay.
That's
Okay, we got 2 days. Woo. All right, next week then, week of July 10th.
Now, I do definitely need you to have a date in August. I need more time for the Westminster Canterbury,
Sure.
just in case.
I'm feeling we still have 8, so we have still 6 more to do. So
I can't do 13 of the following week,
okay, so
but
July,
any other day is
any
fine.
other days.
What about the 12th and the 14th?
They work.
12th is good.
I'll make it work. I have both of those days we've said, but I can potentially have coverage, so that's fine. So what was that, 12th and the 14th?
can do-
Evan, are you good on that too?
Yes, miraculously, 12 and 14 are also good.
All right. 4 days. There we go. Let's keep
All
going.
right, we got. Okay,
we-
I'm out the following week.
Okay. Is that something where, are you available via Zoom or?
Yes, I'll be on vacation, but I'm certainly available by Zoom.
Do you want to use one of your vacation days being all day and
Not,
not particularly, okay,
not really.
okay, let's skip that week. July 24th,
Okay.
week of July 24th.
I'm free the whole week.
Any conflicts that week?
No.
Mr. Mayo?
So what if we went with the 27th and 28th? Would that work?
I think we're just waiting.
Yeah, I think I can.
Oh,
Yeah, so the 24th, I can do 24, can do 26, 27 and 28, I cannot.
Okay, so 7/24 and 7/26. Okay, and then we need 2 more dates, and so now we're gonna go first week of August is gonna be enough for you, Pete, or you need further into August?
If you do first week of August, then add a bonus day.
And add a bonus day.
Yeah,
Oh,
maybe 2 days in the first week of August and then a bonus day in the next week after that.
Okay, so
That we don't use unless we have to.
right, okay.
I'm out of town the first week of August.
Okay, July
Oh, the second.
31st.
I'm sorry, the second week of August.
Okay, so week of July 31st.
Yeah.
Are you're in town
Yes.
that day? Okay.
Uh,
Any conflicts?
Nope.
I do have conflicts the 3rd and the 4th of August. 31st, 1st, and 2nd. August 1st and 2nd, any,
That's better for me, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Evan, Karen, August 1st and 2nd?
I have trial
Yeah,
on
that looks
August
great.
2nd.
Oh,
Evan, what
August
was
1st,
that?
I have trial on August 2nd. I can do August 1st.
Okay,
and August 1st works for me.
okay, I think it works for all of us
Okay.
here.
Okay, great.
All right, and then next week,
August 1st.
Bob, you're away,
Yeah,
week of August 7th. Okay, week of August 14th as our last day.
Was August 1st just one day that week?
Was one day that
That's
week.
one.
it's in the 31st too, right?
Tuesday, right?
No, we're not doing the 31st.
July 31st?
July, was it, what are the conflicts, July 31st?
No, there's no conflict for me on the 31st.
Evan?
Sorry, I'm doing this on my phone. That's why my responses are so tardy.
Okay.
No, I can do July 31st.
Okay, so 7/31, 8/1, and then we're gonna do, keep requesting us having an extra day in August at some point.
And it would have to be the week of the 14th or later.
Yeah, week of the 14th or later.
Okay, well, I can't do the 14th or the 15th. I can do the 16th, 17th, and 18th, and then I'm gone the following week.
Okay, 16, 17, 18,
16, 16.
16, Evan,
Yep.
The 16th on the schedule.
Two 41 is scheduled for 8:30 to 10, and then at 4 to 6 p.m.
Okay.
BOS closed meeting.
but we're trying to start at 8 AM though.
Yeah, I can preempt, I think, the CFOs, the leadership meeting, but not the Board of Supervisors meeting, so.
Which meeting was
But
that?
we could meet.
Well,
at
this
2:30.
is an extra day anyway.
It is, but we can meet at 2:35. Can you check 2:30?
Okay. Okay, so I think August 16, 17, 18, I think, Evan, I think we're waiting for you on that one.
16, 17, 18.
Just need one day.
See 235 on here as being a-
Sorry, oh, one of those, okay. I've got trial 16, 17, 18 is clear.
18, okay,
So August 18th.
yep.
And that was good for everybody?
Yep.
And then, okay, so,
That's 9 days.
yeah, so we need a date. What do we usually do? One in September, one each
Yeah, but
month? or-
these can just be half days and that's,
Right, this is
we
just-
might get one,
Yeah, we haven't had it last 4 years, so.
8 years, yeah. Yeah.
October, November, December, or should we have one in September too?
One is September, yeah,
One each month?
one a month, each month.
Okay, so for the supplemental ones, which hopefully we won't have anything, but September, anyone want to throw out a date? I guess, let's start with Evan, because again, like I said, it seems like he has the most conflicts. Give us a date in September, Evan, and let's see if it works for everyone.
Okay. Nothing on the week of the 5th. I could do September 11, September 12, either of those.
11 or 12, any conflicts?
No.
Any preference between the two?
We do Tuesday from 9 to 12.
Okay, on the 12th then?
Yeah.
So 9
And the 12th, yeah.
morning. Okay, October. Going back to you, Evan. Mid-October sometime, I guess.
16th is trial. I could do the 9th Columbus Day, 10th trial. I could do 12th or 13th of October.
Let's say 12th. Anybody, any conflicts on the 12th? No, okay.
Same time then.
Morning.
9 to 12. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and then November and December to wrap this up. Give it back to you, Evan.
Sorry, what's the ask on this one?
November and then December.
A half day,
Yeah, morning, half day.
middle of the month or later, or?
Yeah, just, well, not, I guess, not the week of the 20th, Thanksgiving week, but
13, 14, 15 are all clear.
Yeah, I'm out that week. I'll be
You're out
away
that
that week. Yeah.
I think we can, should we
I'm
just
out
go ahead
that
and skip? Oh, you're both, okay, well, no, how about the week before it then, the week of the 6th?
6th is clear, 7 is clear, 8th is clear.
Is the 7th good?
7?
7th.
Yep.
November 7th.
Mhm.
And then
Sounds
December,
good.
let's do December early, because
Early.
obviously then you get the holidays.
Yes.
September, or sorry, December, got December 4, December 5.
So December 5th, any,
December 5th.
December 5th,
That's
any
good.
conflicts?
No.
Okay,
That works.
here are the dates I have, July 6th, 8 AM to 5, I guess. Should we put those 6 on the, do we have to put the times in the notice too?
Yeah, I can't remember, but if we do, we'll put 6.
Okay, let's put 6 PM, just, we'll get out early, but, okay, so 7/6, 7/7, 7/12, 7/14, 7/24, 7/26, 7/31, 8/1, 8/18, 9/12, this is 9 AM to noon, right? Or sorry, 10/12, 9 AM to noon, 11/7, 9 AM to noon, and then 12/5, 11 AM to noon. Do we need a motion to approve that? Probably, right?
It wouldn't hurt to do one.
Yeah.
probably.
Do we have a motion to approve these dates?
Oh, wait a minute. Wait.
No
Ju-
problem.
Did you say July 17th?
No,
I'm sorry.
July 14th and then the 24th.
Okay, great. July 14th and then the 24th. Okay, great. Okay, perfect.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve these dates.
I move we approve the dates.
Okay,
The schedule.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Assuming Evan's approving it. Okay, so I think that's it. Do we want to? The last issue remains is that one request regarding the extension. Do we want to discuss it? Like I said, if we do discuss it, I'm going to recuse myself and just stay quiet. But I'll leave it to you all to, if you want to, if we need to address it or deal with, and before we adjourn. Nothing here.
Nothing.
Karen, Evan, anything you want to address on that one? You want to talk about it or just?
Yeah, what to make of that one? Yeah, I mean, do we have a duty to do anything on that? I guess would be my question.
Do we give the appellant the benefit of the doubt and say, come on in, you know?
Yeah, I don't know if we have like jurisdiction, for lack of a better word, to decide the timeliness issue. I wonder if that person needs to seek the intervention of a court to direct us to hear it or not hear it. You know, we have pretty limited, our role is limited to assigning a value to the property once it gets before us. I would defer also to Anthony on this, the county attorney.
I don't think he's on the call anymore.
Did he drop out?
No.
He might not be here. I can't actually.
He's not on.
I guess we can, oh, well, if we didn't talk to him though, that's the only thing. Oh, should we just table this for to our next meeting or? You want to wait to hear?
Yeah, I would kind of feel like we need the county attorney to weigh in on whether we have the authority to hear this. I certainly wouldn't want to color outside the lines.
Can we reach him right now before we? So I know it's noon. I think we all wanna. We're all ready to go. You know, I think the foolish thing we did here with having all these meetings on one day, we're not getting paid extra. We only get paid by the day, not by the hearing. So
That is
Oh, wait a
those
true.
minute.
big
No,
bucks, those big bucks we're not getting.
I'm
so-
doing this for the money.
I know, right?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
We're working this
Somebody-
many hours.
I've been misinformed.
I know, we're working this many hours and we're not gonna get paid. I know. What is this?
So is this regarding your neighbor who wants a?
So that's why I'm not gonna.
Who
that's
wants
why
it,
I'm not
who
gonna-
wants a hearing, right?
They want a hearing, yeah.
He just wants
They want a hearing because of the.
a postmark
That's not
issue.
yeah.
Okay. So his was postmarked. His response was C postmarked after the,
It was mailed on, it was dated April 5th. It was postmarked April 6th. Their letter was dated May 5th and postmarked May 6th.
so they
And it was
dated
due on the 5th
of,
of April, May.
so they post dated a letter?
No, they said that they had a date of the 5th on the letter and then put it in the post office and it was postmarked on the 6th.
Right. Okay.
So what I'm saying is that it was late because it wasn't here on the 5th.
The rules, right?
I've reached
I'm
out.
not-
I'm not sure how to get Andy in here quickly.
Even though I don't have any personal.
I
relationship
can
with him.
invite him to the Zoom. Like I would with, can you check him on Tuesday?
So what kind of complications is it if we just, all right, today late, the fuzziness,
That's why I think we're waiting for.
yeah. Is it any complications? Really no complication?
He's shown as unavailable at the moment.
Yeah, so my concern would be that if we hear this and render some kind of factual determination, then the landowner like relies on it, and then getting a timely appeal as to the amount of the assessment that would be in somehow predicated as it were on a factual determination that we made that may be beyond our authority. And then I don't know what the effect of that would be, but I mean, it's not the type of question, it seems to me that we kind of was in our training that we're in charge of. I'll just put it that way.
If he's not available. Okay, he's not available. Anything that's not available. So, you all, I mean, it sounds like you all want to just table it until next, and maybe you can give us a written opinion between now and then. So between our next meeting. Or until our next meeting. So.
That sounds like a good.
Okay, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second,
I second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
right, adjourned.
Excellent. Thank you all.
Okay, everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Right, go.
So you stop